Betting on the stock market is like just betting on innovation of the human race. That the human race will continue to keep inventing cool stuff like the internet and Apple's and the iPhone and Netflix and Teledoc. You're just betting on innovation. You're betting on the best 500 companies continuing to be good. Not a risky bet in my book.
One of the first steps in building your personal brand is to create your very own website. This week's sponsor, Bluehost, makes it very easy and inexpensive to do that. I've used Bluehost for years. There's no shortage of hosting companies out there, but their price, one-step integration with WordPress, and customer service make them a no-brainer. To get started, go to ronmckeefery.com/Bluehost. There, I walk you through step-by-step how to get your very first website in just minutes. Buying through my link is at no extra cost to you, but it does support me and the show, allow me to continue to bring this show to you for free. Again, go to ronmckeefery.com/Bluehost. Now let's get on with the show. Welcome back, guys, to Overtime. I'm your host, Ron McKeefery, and I'm on a mission to help coaches build multiple streams of income around their personal brand. If this is your first time, make sure to subscribe on any of the podcast platforms, or if you're like me and you like video, make sure to subscribe to my YouTube channel. I always appreciate those of you that like, comment, share, leave reviews. That just helps me continue to help as many coaches as I possibly can. This week, I'm joined by a friend of mine, Rett Larson. Rett and I have, well, first of all, Rett is a guy that I've admired and followed for a long time from afar. He spent most of his career overseas, but, you know, in the last 5 years or so, we've built a really good friendship and hung out a couple times, and just think the world of him and what he does. And so, Rett, man, I'm excited you're on the show.
Yeah, me too. Yeah, I'm a fan as well, of course. I've told you this many times, but especially when you are overseas, you rely heavily on quality podcasts, and yours is always in the feed every time it comes in.
Appreciate you, man. Well, Rett, give everybody just kind of a quick coach's journey. Like, what have you, where have you done? Where have you done it? And what have you done? Where have you done it? And at what point in that journey did you kind of get bit by the entrepreneurial bug?
Oh, all right. Well, the entrepreneurial bug, or more the investing bug, really hit me in undergrad in college, which was, I'm pretty old. So that was back in mid-90s. And I was lucky enough to have a roommate that understood investing in the stock market. And I watched him pay for ski vacations with the stocks that he had purchased. And I was just sitting there being like, why am I having to use all my Christmas money when this guy is getting to pretty much go skiing for free because he's willing to not touch money that I have just sitting in a savings account. Right. And he's willing to actually invest it, and kind of, you have to take a chance, but he made it seem really easy. And then right after college, I actually didn't work in coaching for about 5 years, but in those 5 years, I thought I was going to be an attorney, and I was working in law firms as a legal assistant, and I got in an investing club with a bunch of young attorneys, and we had tickers going all day on our screens, and we kind of competed. We would, we kind of invest in 5 different stocks that we thought were hot. And this was during the .com
right.
boom. So we were just making money. It was so much fun to compare at the end of the day how much, right. If I was addicted to Nintendo, if I loved playing Super Tecmo Bowl, I was investing in Nintendo, and it kind of set in my mind this idea of being like not just a consumer of goods, but also an investor in goods. When I saw companies that I liked, I wouldn't just immediately go buy the product. I would immediately think of, oh, damn, is this a publicly traded company? Because let me just get in and be an investor. And then it makes you feel better about buying expensive video games when you feel that when you're watching your Nintendo investment make money in the ticker window on your screen. But by the time I got into coaching a couple of years later, when I joined Velocity Sports Performance, I was heavily into the stock market, and immediately learned a really, really good lesson, which was the 2007 Great Recession. So from 2007 to 2009, all those wonderful Nintendo investments that I'd made kind of in this stock market club with attorneys, a lot of that got wiped out. And I learned some really good lessons about kind of divorcing yourself from the emotion of the stock market, because because one of the best things I did during that time, and there's two things. There's one thing I could have done better, but one thing I was happy I didn't do was just sell all my stuff. I just kind of stopped checking my at that point it was a Daytech account, my Ameritrade account. I just stopped looking at it. I kind of just buried my head in the sand. Was like, I'll just wait. Now, if I could go back in time, man, I should have just sunk so much money into the market.
Yeah, it's the difference between a bull and bear market, right?
Yeah, right. I mean, which is apropos right now because we're in the middle of another little dip that to some people is this super scary thing, but to people like me, this is what I've been salivating, waiting for to buy some stocks at bargain prices.
So much to dig into that.
Yeah, and I was going to say, so that and then I go to China. So after Velocity, I go to China, and that just opens up another world because I get to see. I feel like I got this insider scoop on investing because I get to see what the Chinese are doing, and that's a pretty darn big market out there, Ron. and so whereas when in the States, I wasn't a coffee drinker when I went over there, but you need the coffee over in China. So, I just like to go to Starbucks for the food, honestly. Right. And then I noticed there was a Starbucks popping up. They were building one every like day in China, and it was a status symbol. So, and in China, I'm limiting my expenses. So,
right.
So one of the best things about going to China is that my monthly expenses plummeted. I had pretty much an Audible account and a Spotify account, and that was it. Wasn't paying for a tank of gas, spent 7 years not paying rent or for gas or for a lease on a car. And so all that money I could just dump into the stock market, into things I saw happening in China. And that kind of takes us to where, and so that was a big opportunity for me to make sure that, to try to secure a financial independence and freedom for the future. All right. I can start talking about this stuff, Ron. You're going to have to shut me off.
I freaking love it, man. And one thing he didn't mention was he's worked with most of the, with several national teams in China, Olympic programs, and now working with the Netherlands Olympic program or volleyball program. And if you're a coach and you haven't followed any of this stuff, I'd definitely do that. But we wanted to have him on the show to talk a little bit about this investing. You can see it's something he's passionate about because it's when you create some financial freedom in this area here, it frees you up to be the coach that you want to be in other areas. You don't have to worry about money. You don't have to worry about your you could be a little bit more selective in the contracts that you take or the situations that you get yourself into, and it's liberating in a lot of ways, isn't it?
You're absolutely right. Like, what I think about is, we both love coaching. I hope it comes through in the way that I coach with big energy. Like, I just love it, but I don't want to be doing it when I'm 70. I love coaching, but I like surfing too. I like going on vacation too. I like not working. And I like the thought of the freedom of not needing to work unless I really am just craving it. Like right now I have kind of like I'm getting close to the place I want to be. When I was in China, it was 360 days a year of work, and it was nose to the grindstone. But it's kind of this general principle of delay of gratification that what you can sacrifice right now, especially when it comes to money, you will reap the benefits of. I mean, we were talking your IRA, your 401k plan, the stock market. These are just waiting games. I mean, it's kind of I think Warren Buffett said that the stock market is merely a device of transferring money from the impatient to the patient. And there's one thing I'm good at, it's just being patient. And so I love the idea of my money making money for me and being able to bow out. Like I said, I have a gig now where I just work for 5 or 6 months this summer, and then I take all winter off. I've done that for the last couple of years, just working for one team during one national team for their season. And then when they go to club teams, I go and visit my friends and relax with my family. And that's part of the, why you don't talk money unless you're talking just being able to enjoy your life and happiness. And that's kind of what it gives you.
That's the old Tim Ferriss story or whatever, right? Where the guys goes on vacation. He's a businessman, right? He goes out with a fisherman, and they take him out, and he's like, "Man, you could blow this up and retire early, get 20 boats, and the guy's like, okay, what would you do if you retired? He's like, I'd sing with my family. I'd go out fishing a couple hours every day with friends. And the guy's like, I'm already doing that. Right?
Okay, that's right. Yeah, I got that. Tick, check, check, check.
Yeah, I think it's quality of life is where it's at, and being the coach that you want to be because you don't have to worry about some of the small stuff. I think that's where everybody gets caught up. So huge there. We sat together, Hallie, I think it was Poland, for hours talking about this, and I'd always been more, I'd come from a single parent, 5 kids, being around debt, all that kind of stuff, and really more the approach of like, let's not have money go out. Let's make sure we're saving money. Let's plug leaks and those types of things, and create some multiple streams, and never really thinking of investing as that way. But, we sat there and I think you recommended, it wasn't Robbins' money book, but what's the book that what's the other one?
Yeah, there's Unshakable.
Unshakable.
I just finished reading Unshakable, and I've read a bunch of investment books, and that one is still my favorite because he talks to all the best investors through history that are still alive, and he's just put it all in one very small book.
Yeah, it's somewhere.
Tony Robbins' Unshakable book is my Bible. It just kind of confirmed a lot of stuff that I liked.
I have it somewhere over there, but I went out and bought it right after you told me, and really started trying to dig into the stock market. I never really, I'd learned to finally max out my 401k at maybe halfway through my career, and put a little bit more money in and be a little bit more aggressive, and have kind of a diverse kind of portfolio of percentages. But you really challenged me to kind of get out and start to think, okay, what do exactly what you said earlier? What do I buy? What do I like? If I like it, probably other people like it, and and kind of start to do that.
Now,
for everybody that's listening, I'm sorry. For everybody that's listening,
no, keep going. You're on a roll. You're right.
For everybody that's listening, what is the how simple can it be? Like what if you get off this, what are you doing next?
Yeah. What I'm going to say, so I'm going to tell you about my journey, and know that I'm not a financial expert. I'm just somebody who really enjoys it. So I'll tell you what I did and what I would recommend. First of all, your path is right. If you have an employer that has a 401k, max that out. If a Roth IRA, if you're making under whatever the Roth limit is, if you're a new coach, max out your Roth every year, and make sure that those investments are in like index funds. That just an index fund basically just owns a little bit of the entire stock market. So it'll just own a share of all the S&P 500. There are bunches of index funds. You can get an index fund. You can diversify your index funds by buying an index fund of all the foreign markets, all the small companies, all the big companies. So just get in the stock market, because here's the secret. The thing that scares everybody about investing, because they think of it like trading, like it's risky and volatile, and the stock market might go up or it might go down. And especially like right now, you would think that it's just down all the time. It's because it makes big news when it goes down.
Right.
But throughout the history of the stock market, if you could look at a chart for any appreciable amount of time, it goes from the lower left-hand corner, tick, 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 up to the upper right-hand corner. And every single bad market, every single bear market is followed by a bull market 100% of the time. The stock market will go down once every 4 years, but it always goes up far longer than it goes down. It just goes down fast when it does go down. It goes down pretty quickly. So it scares people. But if you're willing to wait, and if you're just unemotional about it, then the stock market, betting on the stock market is like just betting on innovation of the human race. That the human race will continue to keep inventing cool stuff like the internet and Apple's and the iPhone and Netflix and Teledoc. You're just betting on innovation. You're betting on the best 500 companies continuing to be good,
right?
Which is not a risky bet in my book. So that said, get index funds that cover the whole market, because that is your safest thing to do with your retirement accounts with most of your money. And if that's all you do, you're going to be better off than 70% of the world,
100%.
Right? You're ahead of 70% of planet Earth by doing that.
And then add compounding interest to that.
Oh, and exactly. So I'll say that, and this is the risky part for me to talk about, but I got that jonesing back in the day to start. I started thinking, okay, index funds are great, but index funds owns all these great companies, but it also owns some crappy companies. All right, it owns the whole S&P 500. And I started thinking, well, if I got to pick stocks, well, maybe I could pick things that are a little bit better. And so I signed up for an Ameritrade account, which is painfully simple. And I read a book by Peter Lynch, and I remember, and I jumped on the Motley Fool, which is a online resource for stocks, and they have great podcasts. And they taught me in a very simple strategy. They said, hey, start looking at stocks, start thinking about it in this way. Like, you can kind of think, all right, what companies, if they just did not exist, would leave an enormous hole in planet Earth?
Right.
Like Amazon. If Amazon just didn't exist tomorrow, I don't even know what people would do. If Google didn't exist tomorrow, like, how would I even search stuff? Is Alta Vista still around? Is Yahoo still around? I don't even remember. Like, if Netflix, all these ones that, like, if Disney World didn't exist, like, it's just, so those to me are safe bets. 100%. They're just going to, there's no joke. They're obviously going to be around for the next 15 years. And then I look for companies that kind of only, like, they're the only one that does their thing. So I think of IMAX in that group. I think of Costco. I guess there's Sam's Club, but if they're like the only guy in town, Google's another example of that. Kind of Tesla, everybody's making electric cars, but Tesla's like in that group.
Yeah.
And so I kind of just look at these companies that I just feel like they're going to be around for a long time. They continue to innovate. I mean, Apple Computer, that's my first big stock purchase that I made after the Great Recession. And talk about compounding interest. I made the investment in Apple when I saw the first iPhone. So this was around like early 2000, 2005 or something like that. I can distinctly remember my buddy coming over and showing me an iPhone, and I had to have one. But that mindset of becoming an investor, not a consumer, I decided I'm going to put a couple of grand into Apple right now because I think this is a crazy great idea. And I'm going to buy an iPhone once my stock increases by that much. Like, wow. So, from 2005 or something like that 20, and over time I've added more to Apple, but my, Apple stock is 150 grand now. And that's just sitting on it. Like, that's me just not looking at my computer. I
think, Roth IRA, let's explain that real quick. What's an Roth IRA?
Yeah. So the Roth is just nice because it's tax deferred. So basically you're not having to pay. You can, if you were just agreed to not take that money out until you retire, you can take it out without ever getting taxed on it, which is awesome, which other means don't do that. Like the stock market doesn't do that. When I have to if I were to sell stocks, which actually I never do, I would have to pay capital gains tax, which just means you have to pay for selling out of your stocks. So I'm somebody that just buys and holds. I ride them all the way to the ground. And Ron, let me just go off for a second. Another great thing about the stock market and stocks and index funds, and the reason that index funds are a great investment is that your worst case scenario with a stock is that it loses 100%. That it goes, you invest $1,000 in your friend's startup, and in 3 years, he goes to Vegas does a bunch of cocaine and blows it all. And his company goes under. You will lose all 1,000 of your dollars. Right. That's the downside. But the upside is that guy could also have an amazing company that not only doubles but triples and quadruples. So whereas you have a few companies that are bottoming out, the worst thing that happens is you lose 100%. Right. The best thing is that you gain thousands of percents, that it goes 10x, 20x. And, that's it. So even though in my portfolio, I probably have 60 stocks and I have 3 that have completely bottomed out, just terrible investments that I just went nowhere. But I have dozens that have tripled, and quadrupled in that time. Jeez. And so I just kind of walk this world constantly thinking about, is this a good company? And the first time I walked into a Lululemon store, I couldn't believe it. I mean, I couldn't believe how great my girlfriend's butt looked in the pants. I couldn't believe the customer service when I went into the store. And I bought stock in them a week later. And now it's just fun. It's like I'm on their team. I'm always rooting for Lulu.
I think that's, and you're right. I think that's a great way of looking at it as well. Is that you're a little piece of the American dream, or the global dream for that matter, because I know that you invest globally as well. But
Yeah.
it's a whole other topic that we'll probably have you back on the show for. But
Yeah.
I think I love the concept of investor versus consumer and really thinking like that. I think most coaches, when we try to break it down to as simple as it can be as simple as you're maxing out your IRA, right, and making sure that you're taking advantage of that, going on and getting a Ameritrade account or anything along those lines. I think you can look at it almost even as like the bell-shaped curve, right? As long as most of your money is in safe investments like index funds or something like that, but I think you can also have a little bit of fun with it and put a little bit of money, maybe 30% or so, towards like, I like that product. Let's see where it goes, and maybe cash that out, I buy my condo, or whatever.
Right. And so, Ron, when I opened my first TD Ameritrade account, it was money that I told myself, if I lose all of this is not going to hurt me. I put all the stuff in the Roth, everything was safe, but that little account full of my little plucky stocks that I believed in, Ron, if we're going to talk, I'll be honest with you, that I'm looking for that to be $1 million in the next year or so. Because to me, that's a magic number for a bunch of reasons. But, Ron, the stock market over the last 30 years has returned an average of 10%. If I have $1 million in the stock market, then my money is making me $100,000 a year, Ron. My money is making me $100,000 a year. So in terrible, and sure, there's going to be years where maybe it makes 1% and I'm making $10,000 that year. But if it's balanced over time with the next year, it's going to be 18%, and I made $180,000. My money made $180,000 for me that year. That's where I need to be.
The other part of that is it's an asset, right? So it can be liquidated if you ever needed it to be.
You're exactly right. And this is when I get a lot of friends that say, Rett, my investment is my house. My investment is my house. That's the big thing I've always done. I don't see the house as an investment that much. I see it. I honestly see it more of as a consumption item. I don't own a house. And me not owning a house, actually, I think is part of the reason I was able to move to China in a blink of an eye and not miss on the best opportunity I've ever had in my life. It's the reason I can take a job in the Netherlands. I'm not tethered to this thing, and it freed up my assets to be able to push into other things. It certainly, houses and property make money, no doubt about that. It is a fantastic investment. I think especially if you could be so disciplined as to get your first house that had maybe rental units or something in it. There's ways to make money.
Real estate investing is another great way.
That's not my specialty, but you do what you were just saying is right. You miss out on the liquidity. You miss out on being able to free up that money really, really quickly. And so yeah, I am always pushing back a little bit to people. I caution people that just think, house. And by the way, houses aren't, it's like the stock market. They're not a slam dunk that they're always going to make money. There are housing market downturns. This is.
I'm carrying 2 houses right now. I know exactly what you're talking about. I think it's so important. I think it all comes back, and maybe close out the show with this is you are living the coaching lifestyle that you want to live. And you're also living, that you got a family now, you've got, your friends are super important to you. You've kind of reinvented a little bit. I think I look at the way that most of the coach's journey goes, right? They get into coaching, they do their 20 years or so, 30 years or so, they get their bull ring or their gold watch, and they, ride off to the sunset. And there is a different approach to that than, you go in and working for 5 months of the year and then traveling the world or doing,
right.
And being able to do that on money that you were patiently put away and you were smart about, and sacrificing early makes it so that you can live a life later that other people only dream of.
And a shout out to you that if on my off time during my winters, that is the time to be working on these side hustle skill sets, like writing books, which you do, which is a great way, which is a skill set. Speaking about investing, and if you want to separate yourself from other coaches, which is you want to have competitive differentiators in your world, Like, be a coach that can write well, because there aren't many. Be a coach that is great at public speaking, that cares deeply about how gorgeous their slide deck works. Pay to be able to poll an audience during your presentations, like cool, fun tricks like that engage audiences. Get a reputation as an incredible speaker. And then, during your off season, sit around making $4 or $5 grand a weekend speaking, because you took the time and maybe you paid Getty Images to have gorgeous, slide decks. Little investments like that are competitive differentiators. And don't even get me started on not only investing in the stock market, but invest in yourself. Like, buy your own equipment. Like, I'm a guy that when you hire me, you get 6 push bands and my 4K boxes and my smart speed system all come with me, because every year I'll put money aside so that I can come with all the tools I need for war. And so I'm trying to just make myself this undeniably great hire. And that's another side of this investment thing that I got to rant over.
Well, we're going to definitely have you back on the show, man, because I think when you're a kind of a serial entrepreneur and think outside the box, I mean, you constantly find creative ways, like you just mentioned, 5 different ways in the last minute of how you can make yourself invaluable to an organization, which ultimately leads to your bottom line, right? And man, freaking, we could talk all day. Really good.
I love this stuff.
And truly appreciate your friendship and your guidance and inspiration. Because I did exactly what we're talking about. As soon as we got done talking, I went and created a Ameritrade account and bought some stocks, and and definitely seen some success with it. And honestly, to be honest with you, like I did it, and it was play money, and I'm like, every once in a while I'll check it, and it's, oh yeah, cool, what's up?
And this is the best thing. Don't be me. Don't be watching it every day, because then you'll be emotionally tied to it. The best thing you can do, buy stuff. Don't look at it for months, and then you'll just be surprised how much just grows without you thinking about it. But you just want to make sure that you remind yourself to keep investing, because getting in early, it is the best thing you can do. They say that these bear markets are wasted on the young, because young people aren't bold enough. They haven't learned life's lessons enough to know that when there's blood in the streets and pandemic is here and everyone's selling their stocks, this is the time to coolly go in and make your fortune buying everything at a discount.
That's exactly right. But where can everybody kind of stay up with you? Where can they go?
I'm on Instagram. I'm on Facebook and Twitter. I think you can just search for, I think I'm at Rettosaurus on Instagram. Long story about how one of my nephews that's in the other room nicknamed me that, and it just stuck. So at Rettosaurus, Rettasaurus on Instagram. I'm going to do it that way. Let's just keep it easy.
Fantastic, man. Appreciate you, brother.
Yeah, right back at you, Ron.
That's it for this week's episode of Overtime. Thanks to this week's guest and our sponsors for bringing this episode to you for free. Make sure to check out RonMcKeefery.com, where you can join our mailing list, find the show notes, including all the links and resources mentioned, and information about my other projects. While there, make sure you join me in thanking our guest for sharing in the comments. If you haven't subscribed to the podcast, search Ron McKeefery on YouTube or Overtime on any of the podcast directories. Ratings and reviews are always appreciated, and they help me to help as many coaches as I can. That's it for this week. Be sure to check back next week for another great episode of Overtime.